This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 36, Daughter of the Night, and our symbol is the moon and stars.
The Landfear symbol.
Realizing that he had no way of knowing which cabin was supposed to be his, he put his head into several. They were dark, and all of them had two men asleep in narrow beds built against each side, all but one, which held Loyal, sitting on the floor between the beds and barely fitting, scribbling in his cloth-bound book of notes by the light of a gimbaled lantern. The Ogier wanted to talk about the events of the day, but Perrin, jaws creaking with the effort of holding his yawns in, thought the ship must have run far enough downriver by now to make it safe to sleep, safe to dream. Even if they tried, wolves could not long keep pace with the sweeps and the current. Finally, he found a windowless cabin with no one in it at all, which suited him just as well. He wanted to be alone. A coincidence in the name, that's all, he thought, as he lit the lantern mounted on the wall. Anyway, her real name is Zareen. But the girl with the high cheekbones and dark, tilted eyes was not uppermost in his thoughts. He put his bow and other belongings on one cramped bed, tossed his cloak over them, and sat on the other to tug off his shoes.
A gimbaled lamp.
Did you just Google that?
Yeah.
Good, because I just realized that I have no idea what that means.
And I'm actually having some issues figuring out exactly what it is. To me, some of these look like a lamp in a cage hanging from a ceiling. Others look like they're on a side-to-side hinge. I'm guessing the whole point is to keep it level with the movement of the ship.
My grandmother owned one of these. It is, so the bottom is like a counterweight, and the top is where the fire is. Okay. So if the wall moves, the lantern stays upright. Vertical. So that it's not, pouring flaming oil all over the place or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea on a wooden ship.
Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, she had a candle holder that worked the same, so you could walk around with it, and the candle would stay level if you just hold the handle. Just, old antique collection thing. Cool. I didn't know what that actually meant.
Oh, that would be cool. A nice filming technique. You throw it on a camera on your cell phone, and then you have essentially stabilized video.
Yeah, you would just need a forked thing with a hinge, kind of, to attach to your phone case.
Totally. Almost like a
camera,
like a slingshot. But instead of having a piece of rubber between it, you have two hinges.
Yeah.
That attach to a case. Yeah, and you have three-way gimbals on cameras for drones and stuff like that, so you can control X, Y, and Z movement.
So Perrin's sitting down, and he has the thought, really quick, Elias Machera?
I do a hard, so... Yeah.
Elias Machera had found a way to live with what he was, a man somehow linked with wolves, and he had not gone mad. But he also has the thought, I don't want to live alone in the forest just running around with wolves for the rest of my life either.
Yeah, and I think it's all about finding your own balance. You know, Elias finds a balance that's 80% wolf, 20% man. Boundless went 100% wolf, 0% man. And Perrin really finds his balance much more on the side with men.
Yes.
He uses the wolf, but it's not, at least in the beginning, he's more man. I think maybe he comes to almost a 50-50 balance with his power in the dream.
That's probably right.
But, I think that what he hasn't realized is that he can find his own balance. He thinks he has to just make a choice and give up something that he wants. And until he is able to accept that, and that's really important that he meets with Boundless again to understand that Boundless made the choice to go all wolf. He didn't go insane.
Well, this is a continuous struggle for him. Cautiously, he reached out with his mind, feeling for wolves, and found nothing. Oh, there was a dim impression of wolves somewhere in the distance, but it faded even as he touched it. For the first time in so long, he was alone. Blessedly alone.
So they've been going downriver, and he's just been getting away from the wolves. That also means he doesn't necessarily have the protection of the wolves that he's always had on his dreams.
That's true. Well, I mean, he's only got Hopper.
Yeah.
Who's there wherever he is, or
and
can be.
Right. And Hopper is pretty good protection. Well, at least Hopper has knowledge, if not necessarily a lot of power.
That's always the way it seemed. Although Hopper can expertly navigate the world of dreams, though which is clear over the next, this next dream sequence as Perrin's falling asleep here, he doesn't seem to be, the wolf doesn't seem to be as powerful as, say, Perrin is later.
Mm-hmm. I do think humans have an ability to see what is not sometimes, where wolves may be more in tune with the natural world.
Right.
But I think that maybe humans have the ability to alter the world of dreams more effectively.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar thought that it probably has more to do with just a human's ability to force their will upon something, whereas I feel like a wild animal was less likely to think in that way. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I forget why I was talking about it, but I referenced, when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail at first, when you first start, like, the weather sucks, it just rains for 3 days, and you're, like, miserable and, like, cursing that it's against you in your head, and, like, by the end, like, at, 6 or 7 months in, like, it starts raining, and nobody even says anything. Like, you just walk along, everybody drops their packs, puts on rain gear, and you just continue moving, and there's just no...
It's just part
of life. You just accept it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. It's raining now. That's all. Yeah. It's not really very important.
It's like you don't discuss every breeze that comes along.
No.
Because it happens all the time.
It's just the world that you live in,
So there's a little bit of a debate in the Discord about whether or not he still has the protection of the wolves, simply because he is out of their range of detection, because they have the ability to go anywhere in the wolf dream.
Mm-hmm. I'll read this first couple of paragraphs of dream sequence I have marked out. Perrin is wondering how in the light Loyal will manage to sleep in one of these tiny cabins.
I assume he's sleeping on the floor.
That's what I thought.
Maybe take
Perrin,
down some of the
barely
mattresses.
fits in his tiny bed, and
Right.
he's just like a large man, Forget being an Ogier.
He might even have to sleep sitting up.
Yeah, or laid out on the ground. Perrin falls asleep, and thick gray fog surrounded him, dense enough low down that he could not see his own boots, and so heavy on every side that he could not make out anything 10 paces away. There was surely nothing nearer. Anything at all might lie within it. The mist did not feel right. There was no dampness to it. He put a hand to his belt, seeking the comfort of knowing he could defend himself, and gave a start. His axe was not there. Something moved in the fog, a swirling in the grayness, something coming his way. He tensed, wondering if it was better to run or stand and fight with his bare hands, wondering if there was anything to fight. The billowing furrow boring through the fog resolved itself into a wolf, its shaggy form almost one with the heavy mist. Hopper? The wolf hesitated, then came to stand beside him. It was Hopper, he was certain, but something about the wolf's stance, something in the yellow eyes that looked up briefly to meet his, demanded silence, in his mind as well as body. Those eyes demanded that he follow, too. He laid a hand on the wolf's back, and as he did, Hopper started forward. He let himself be led. The fur under his hand was thick and shaggy. It felt real.
So I'm not sure exactly where they are. They seem to almost be in a place outside of the dream, or outside of a dream.
Yeah.
Some sort of transition area between Teleron-Riyadh and what may be a dream shard is kind of what I was assuming.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know exactly what Ishmael is doing here, but he's clearly summoned some of his head dark friends into this strange room filled with mirrors that go on forever. Is somewhere in a fog or a cloud? I don't know.
I assumed it was some sort of obscuring mist that either was a border between Teleron-Riyadh and the dream shards, which we know Ishmael likes to inhabit.
Yeah.
Either just a border or protection of some kind. I don't really have any other ideas.
Yeah.
But I do think that this place is not standard Teleron-Riyadh.
I don't think so either. So Hopper leads Perrin into this scene where Ishmael has gathered a handful of men. I believe it was a Terran, an Ilioner, and a Tarvaliner. Just realized I've never had to say that out loud before. I'm not sure how you do that. Tarvalinite? Tarvalianin?
Tarvaloner. Tarvalarian?
Is it? I'm going to take her word for it. Aradia, she says Tarvaliner might be used later in the book, she thinks. Tarvalinarianite? I like that one. Tarvalonian sounds like a sandwich. Don't know why. So, anyway, there appears to be 3 men who have been gathered there, and they're all, amazed and surprised. They're saying, "Is this real? Have you really come to me, oh great Lord? I thought I was sleeping. I remember going to sleep. What's happening here?" And, of course, they've been pulled from their dreams into where Ishmael wanted them to be.
Absolutely.
And he's basically, I assume, summoned the 3 of them, and then he executes the Tarvalinariorite. For allowing Matt to escape Tarvalin.
Right.
In front of the other 2 who apparently have some important task.
I would assume each of them is trying to track down one of the boys, or perhaps the girls.
I would think so. Ishmael says, "You have been given tasks," Belzamon said. "Some of these tasks you have carried out. At others, you have failed. Those who have been marked for death must die. Those who have been marked for taking must bow to me. To fail the Dark Lord cannot be forgiven."
And I think those who have been marked for death are the 3 boys, because we know he's trying to take out the tripod.
Is he still trying to kill Rand?
Yes.
Okay.
This is book 3, he's trying to kill Rand, because after book 2, he got stabbed in the chest, and that pissed him off something fierce, and he decided that he did not want Rand alive.
Oh, I forgot to point out that the dark-haired man who faced them was garbed in black, with silver lace at his throat and wrist. Now and again he put a hand to his chest, as if it hurt him.
As if someone had stabbed him through the chest, like Rand.
Right.
And also, the darkness rolling around him, I think, is a visualization of the true power and his connection to the Dark One in Teleron-Riyadh.
Yeah.
And those are sort of intertwined. I think at some point, aid me, and like the big black cloud, that's right before he stabs Rand in the side in the end of Dragon Reborn. And all of that power goes into that staff and into that wound, which is why it's unhealable.
And have we agreed, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but have we agreed that when Ish is channeling the true power, that's when the flames roar?
I think so.
Like, that's when makes more light or whatever?
When his eyes and mouth turn to great caverns of flame.
Furnace face. Yeah. Jesus, Frankie says. I like that.
Soul burner, that's a cool term.
Sounds like something out of the Cosmere.
The eyes are the windows to the soul, and if you burn them with the true power, you end up looking like Ishmael. And I think those who have been marked for taking must bow to me are the women. I think he wants them taken prisoner.
I'm nodding. Yeah.
Because he controls the Black Ajah, and so I think they're acting under his orders.
So then, like I said, Ishmael points at the man from Tarvalin and says, "You allow the boy to escape," and the man screamed and began to quiver like a file struck against an anvil. He seemed to become less solid, and his scream thinned with him. "You all dream," Belzamon said, "but what happens in this dream is real."
And we see him try to do this to Rand a few times, just will him totally out of existence. That's something you can do in Teleron-Riyadh, if your willpower is strong enough and theirs is weak enough.
That is cool, in a horrifying way. The shrieking man was only a bundle of mist shaped like a man, his scream far distant, and then even the mist was gone. "I fear he will never wake," he laughed, and his mouth roared flame. "The rest of you will not fail me again. Begone, wake, and obey." The other men vanished.
Just a standard corporate meeting.
If the corporate meeting is the Empire in Star Wars, or...
Sure. "You have failed me for the last time."
And then Ish stands alone for a moment, and then suddenly there was a woman with him, clad all in white and silver. Shock hit Perrin. He could never forget a woman so beautiful. She was the woman from his dream, the one who had urged him to glory.
if you see a beautiful woman, run, because it's Lanfear. They're calling me out. It's not Ishmael that tries to turn Rand to non-existence. It's Ravine. I could have sworn Ishmael does it too in the last battle here.
Oh, is that right?
Because he tries to, he does a lot of stuff to Rand. And Rand keeps bringing existence back into balance. It's a really cool scene. Dancing on the blade edge of the power.
Oh, that's interesting, guys. I didn't remember that. Everybody's nodding to that.
Oh, yeah, there's that. The one where Rand has to remember his own face is when Ravine tries to... Because Ravine knew LTT, he actually tries to turn Rand into LTT. Or Lewis Theron, I should say.
Right.
In the flesh, in the world of dreams. And, make him that other person. There are two battles, and I'm getting them a little confused. Because there's a battle against Ravine and a battle against Ishmael. And they both end up... Yeah, and Bilal does it to him here a little bit.
Oh.
Okay, Mackenzie's got the summary. Ravine tries to make Rand disappear, and when Rand's trying to bring himself back, LTT tries to make his face appear. And so they have to, battle it out as to who's coming back, basically.
Oh.
And then Aradia's saying there were 3 battles. Bilal in the real stone, Ishmael in the dream stone, and then Ravine in dream Camelin in a later book. Yeah, they love going into Teleron Riyadh for a battle. They think it lends them some sort of advantage.
An ornate silver throne appeared behind her, the woman in white and silver, and she sat, carefully arranging her silken skirts. "You make free use of my domain," she said. "Your domain?" Belzamon said. "You claim it yours, then? Do you no longer serve the great Lord of the Dark?" There's kind of an interesting exchange here that I felt like that pretty much summarizes it.
And Perrin has the assumption that Belzamon is the great Lord of the Dark, which makes this conversation very confusing to him, when it's really just 2 Forsaken talking about their shared great Lord.
Right. And Ishmael repeatedly accuses Lanfear of serving herself rather than the great Lord of the Dark, which is absolutely true. But Lanfear continues to deny it because, of course, she would be punished terribly if anyone found out what her actual plans were. "What is yours?" Belzamon said. "You always thought yourself greater than you were, Lanfear." The name cut at Perrin like a newly honed knife. One of the Forsaken had been in his dreams. Moraine had been right. Some of them were free.
More than one.
All of them at this point, I think.
Yeah. Well, for Perrin, I think it's just been Lanfear and Belzamon.
Well, yeah, I just mean, I think they're all free at this point.
Oh, sure. They've been free for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think are there any that we haven't heard from yet? I guess.
There's definitely, Semirog and...
Moghedian? Have we heard from Moghedian?
I don't think we've seen Moghedian yet. Grendel is barely even around, I think, at this point.
But anyway, I thought her retort was a little interesting. The woman in white was on her feet, the throne gone. "I am as great as I am. What have your plans come to? 3,000 years and more of whispering in ears and pulling the strings of throne puppets like an Aes Sedai. 3,000 years, and yet Luz Theron walks the world again. And these Aes Sedai all but have him leashed. Can you control him? Can you turn him? He was mine before ever the straw-haired chit Illianus saw him. He will be mine again. Do you serve yourself now, Lanfear?" Ishmael re-accuses her.
Again. Yes, kind of.
She always has.
Yeah. Isn't that the, defining characteristic of a dark friend?
That really they're serving themselves, yeah.
And this is also a good quote in terms of how we know that Ishmael has been out and active for the last 3,000 years.
Right.
He's not been fully bound. One of the many quotes.
Well, Lanfear is...
that tell us that.
Yeah. Basically saying,
hey, you've had 3,000 years to do something. All you got is these, crappy black Aja.
Yeah.
That's, pathetic.
It's you've had so much time to prepare, and, what have you actually gotten done?
Rand's walking around. He's going for the Kalendor. You have no control over him.
After Lanfear says, "I serve the great Lord of the Dark and none other, forever," the vast array of mirror began to vanish as if black waves rolled in over it, ever closer to the center. The tide rolled over Belzamon and Lanfear. There was only blackness.
I kind of assume that is Ishmael just getting rid of the dream shard that he created. He has no more need for it.
Yeah. And Hopper takes him away. Perrin asks, "What was that?" he demanded, struggling in his mind to turn the question to thoughts the wolf could understand. "Why did you show it to me? What was it?" "What you must see. Be careful, young bull. This place is dangerous. Be wary as a cub hunting porcupine."
It's basically like saying, look, there's the danger. Stay away from it.
Yeah.
These are bad people, and they're coming to kill you.
This also gives Perrin some important hints. He now knows that Selene is Lanfear for the first time.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. That he didn't know before that that's who was in his dreams.
Yeah.
Despite Min's warning.
Was it real? Perrin asked. All is real. What is seen and what is not seen. That seemed to be all the answer Hopper was going to give.
Which is just saying the dream world is just as real as the real world. You can die, that guy died, definitely. These people were meeting. But it's not like the real world.
Right. It's like this is real and the world is real. They're both real.
Whether it's seen or not.
Right.
But there's that quote from Matrix when they pull the tracker out of Neo's belly button.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Holy crap, that thing was real?" And they don't say anything. They're like, yeah. I mean, it was a tracker, but it was like software. Real and not real.
As real as things get here.
Right.
"Hopper, how are you here? I saw you die. I felt you die. All are here. All brothers and sisters that are, all that were, all that will be." Perrin knew that wolves did not smile, not the way humans did, but for an instant he had the impression that Hopper was grinning. "Here, I soar like the eagle," and he does.
And so he gets a second death. All that much more tragic. But I love that he soars and gets to fly in the world of dreams. It's sort of, when you see your dog, like, twitching in their dreams, it just makes you think that they're flying in the world of dreams.
And then everything changes. He, Perrin, was standing on a rise, with shadowy indistinct dips and swells all around him. They seemed to fade into the distance too soon. Rand stood below him. Rand, and a ragged circle of Myrddraal and men and women his eyes seemed to slide right past. Dogs howled somewhere in the distance, and Perrin knew they were hunting something. Myrddraal scent and the stink of burned sulfur filled the air. Perrin's hackles rose. Well, we know that this is Rand in the world of dreams.
Yes, because we see his POV here in a second.
Yeah, and there's a short exchange, but what is attacking him?
I think they're illusions sent by Ishmael.
Just to torture his mind.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I think if one got through, it would probably still kill him. I think they're legitimate dangers.
But nightmares rather than real Myrddraal.
Possibly.
Which Myrddraal don't dream, right?
That's true. We just saw Lanfear say that only Myrddraal and Grey Men are denied dreams.
Even Trollocs dream, she says, which is how we know that Trollocs do dream.
So here's a question. Could you send a Myrddraal to the dream in the flesh, even if they don't dream?
I don't see why not. What do you think, Chosen? Well...
Oh, they would die going through a gateway.
Yeah, you would have to make a gateway. And even the True Power can't transport Shadow Spawn.
Good call. Good call. So that makes me think that these even more so that these aren't like Myrddraal and men that he's somehow transported into the world of dreams and is just sending it Rand as cannon fodder.
Yeah.
I think that they must be constructs.
Mm-hmm.
And so Perrin tries to warn him that there are more coming.
After Rand kills the first group, and then there's another group coming, and Rand thinks that Perrin is another one of the constructs, and...
Or like with Egwene, he thinks she's coming to kill him. He thinks Ishmael's been sending all these evil illusions of his friends and family at him that then try and kill him.
Right.
He sort of primed him to accidentally kill one of his friends.
And he hurls a fireball or something at Perrin. It just says... Rand looked up at him from his crouch, snarling, after Perrin tried to shout to warn him, sweat slicking his face. "Rand, there, burn you," Rand howled. Light burned Perrin's eyes, and pain seared everything. And then he wakes up.
When he wakes up, he says it was lightning.
Oh.
He's like, not bad for surviving a lightning.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. But yeah, he has a small burn on his chest.
It's definitely not Balefire, because if Balefire had touched him, he would have been erased. Totally. We see that Balefire, even if it touches a small spot on like a person or a Murdroll, the whole person inverts and is erased.
He wakes up and sees that the burn is real and not just from a dream, and decides to go tell Moraine because this appears to be a very dangerous thing.
And not to mention the meeting between, he realizes, oh, Lanfear's been in my dreams.
Right.
I need some Aes Sedai help with that. But, he hasn't slept for days, so he drifts right back off again. He's been staying awake and almost not sleeping at all for days and days, if not longer.
He goes and finds Moraine's cabin and tells her. I had a dream, he told her, and proceeded to tell her of it. All of it. He even pulled up his shirt to show her the small circle on his chest, red, with wavy lines radiating from it.
Notice she's fully dressed this time, as opposed to last time when she was just wearing a robe.
I did kind of notice that he makes a note that she's fully dressed, like he has that thought.
Which makes me think even more that her robe may have been a little more open than everyone thinks when he walked in on her last time. And I also noticed that she's studying her notes from back, what does it say? Back near the beginning, he saw. Notes that must have been made even before she had come to Emmons Field. Lan's things were piled neatly on the other bed. So she is going back and really studying, I'm guessing, early prophecies. I was wondering if you guys could help me out and try and figure out what kind of note she would be studying. Yeah. It's hard because she's been writing a journal this entire time, so it could be anything within the last 20 years.
She's just kind of reviewing things.
Yeah. Looking for clues. Yeah, I do think she is thinking a little bit more, I agree, Radia, about the fact that all three boys are significant rather than just the Dragon Reborn. She's really spent this entire time looking for one single boy. And once she found him and ran, she dismissed the other two as unimportant. And she just recently had that revelation that perhaps she should have paid more attention to the fact that there were 3 Ta'Veren all born at the same time.
Yeah.
In the same village. And she may be going back and looking for the significance of that in terms of like Wolf Brother and Matt's luck. And, I don't know what she suspects, but she may be looking for hints that these 3 are as important as just the one.
That's what I was thinking, Travis. But that does definitely happen at some point if she says that out loud.
Yeah, even if she hasn't said it out loud yet, I think she's thinking it.
Yeah. Especially considering now she knows Perrin's a dreamer and a wolf brother. I mean, that's not new information, but...
No. And yeah, I don't think she knows about the luck, but she does know that, like, Matt's, blown the horn, A. B has been influenced by Shadar Logoth.
Mm-hmm.
She knows they're important.
Read part of her response.
Which is just one of the most frustrating responses in the world.
There are women, she said slowly, who would do their best to gentle you if they heard what I just did. His lungs seemed to freeze. He could not breathe. I am not accusing you of being able to channel, she went on, and the ice inside him melted, or even being able to learn. An attempt at gentling would not harm you, beyond the rough treatment the Red Ajah would give you before they realized their error. Such men are so rare. Even the Reds, with all their hunting, have not found more than 3 in the last 10 years. Before the outbreak of false dragons, at least. What I am trying to make clear to you is that I do not think you will suddenly begin wielding the power. You do not have to be afraid of that. Well, thank you very much for that, he said bitterly. You did not have to scare me to death just so you could tell me there was no need to be frightened. Oh, you do have reason to be frightened, or at least careful, as the wolf suggested. Red Sisters, or others, might kill you before they discovered there was nothing to gentle in you.
Just ask Elias. He had to kill a couple of warders to get out of there. And I know he says...
He even says it. Yeah. Not that gentling would have done anything, but I just didn't like it.
I know he says that, but I wonder how threatened, if the Red Sisters were actually possibly going to kill him anyway.
You never know, and a man like that just doesn't want to be detained.
And I do think we have a lot of evidence for the Black Oddjaw influencing the Red Oddjaw in that time period.
When we see the numbers later, there's like more black in the red than the other?
Yes, it's like a quarter of most Oddjaws and like a third of the Reds.
Right.
And we see them at that time doing things like killing boys about the right age who may be able to channel without bringing them back to the White Tower just because they could possibly be the Dragon Reborn. So I think Elias is downplaying what they were trying to do to him, because I don't think he would have killed warders just because he didn't like being taken. I think there was a more serious threat to his life.
Maybe. Yeah, that does add a level of...
Yeah, and that's often referred to, I think, doesn't it, Varen refer to it as the vileness with the Reds? Or was it Codswain?
I thought that was like a generally accepted term.
Oh, that's Elida?
Isn't it? Of a generally accepted term of like a series of events. Is that right?
I thought it was just sort of like a term they used because they didn't want to talk about it. That thing happened, it was vile. I'm going to do a quick Google of vileness. It says some Aes Sedai use the term. The vileness was mostly kept hidden even from other Aes Sedai. This is shown when Codswain mentions it in the presence of Myrna and Aurora, both of the Grey Oddjaw, but neither appears to know what she was talking about. Most of the sisters who carried out the crime, such as Galena and Elida, were not harmed at all. After Elida became the Amelin seat, she eventually recalled the exiled sisters and involved in the vileness. So yeah, it appears to be like not well known because obviously Aes Sedai like to hide things from each other, and so they didn't want this to hurt the reputation of the Reds. But it was well known enough that the vileness is a term that exists on both the Red and with Codswain. And yeah, so this is definitely a bit of information from Moiraine here, because she said, "Your dreams are nothing I expected. Dreamers have written of wolves, but I did not expect this."
Yeah.
And that, I think, is really important, because here all of a sudden she's realizing that Perrin really is a dreamwalker. Because she's known about Ishmael being in his dreams before, but that doesn't really mean anything.
Right. That could have been all him.
Right.
What she is just realizing is that Perrin has the dreaming talent.
From the wolves.
Yeah. Well, I think it was real. I think I saw something that really happened. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I think Lanfear is loose at the very least. What are you going to do? Perrin asked Moiraine. I am going to Ilion, and then I will go to Tyr, and hope to reach it before Rand. We had to leave Remen too quickly for Lan to learn whether he crossed the river or went down it. We should know before we reach Ilion, though. We will find sign if he has gone this way.
Taviran sign. Yeah. Worm sign? No, that's something different.
She glanced at her book as if she wanted to resume her reading. Is that all you're going to do, with Lanfear loose, and the light alone knows how many of the others? Do not question me, she said coldly. You do not know which questions to ask, and you would comprehend less than half of the answers if I gave them, which I will not.
She did say it right out. You don't know. You don't know enough for me to tell you about anything.
Yeah.
Come to the White Tower, train for 20 years, and then I'll be able to explain it to you.
Young pup. And then, shortly after, will you heal this?
Here's where he says, I did not seem a bad hurt. Not for being struck by lightning, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But how he had come by it was another matter.
Are you no longer uneasy about the one power being used on you then, Perrin? No, I will not heal it. It is not serious, and it will remind you of the need to be careful.
Damn, that's harsh.
That's a good lesson.
Reminder?
Yeah. It's just, a small burn.
Maybe a small scar there on his chest to always remind him to be careful?
Maybe. If there is nothing else, Perrin? He started for the door, then stopped. There is one thing. If you knew a woman's name was Zareen, would you think it meant anything about her? Why under the light do you ask this question? A girl, he said awkwardly. A young woman. I met her last night. And Moiraine goes on to say, well, I know that it's a Saldean name, and no woman would name her daughter that unless she expected her to be a great beauty and a heartbreaker, one to lie on cushions in palaces, surrounded by servants and suitors. She smiled, briefly but with great amusement. Perhaps you have another reason to be careful, Perrin. if there is this Zareen as a passenger with us, I intend to be careful, he told her. And Moraine says, oh, there's someone else hunting you, is there?
Little does Moraine know the headaches this girl is going to give her. But yeah, this is the Falcon. There's a little bit of time here before he accepts her, and that's when she gets trapped by the hedgehog.
Yeah.
And so there's that period of time before he rescues her where they fight over her name because he doesn't want to accept that she is the Falcon that Min spoke of.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to call her Fail, but she's like, that's my name, you stupid. Oh, call me by my name. And so they get in that fight simply because Perrin's unable to admit that this is the girl that for him.
Yeah. And then they never get out of bed together again. I don't know, Aradia. That's a good question. Was just kind of being funny, but I mean, RJ's not really clear enough to know if they are sleeping with each other that early on or not, but I assume so.
I think so too.
Good point, Leia. Well, I don't know if it's really important or how much we want to get into this, but when do they start sharing a bed?
I honestly think it's when he starts calling her my Fail.
Yeah, right after the hedgehog.
Yeah,
right
after the hedgehog.
That's what I just assumed.
Yeah.
Like, the page turns and the chapter's over, but their night wasn't over. That's when the relationship really starts.
Yeah, there is that. I guess there is that time, like Aradia's quote, "It took me months and a marriage to seduce you." I mean, they're certainly dating after the hedgehog. When exactly they get physical and dating in terms of you know what I mean. There's a lot of kissing going on. There's definitely a lot of kissing going on beforehand.
Okay, well, building tension and...
I mean, in fairness, I think they're married within a few months. It's not like this is a long... we've got a year until the last battle, and he's just meeting her now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty quick.
True. So that's really, months is really only... When Fail says months, she probably means just a few.
Yeah.
She could only mean just a few, 2 or so. Which isn't really a terribly long time to...
Travis is making a good point that when they get married, they've known each other for about a year. And so that's how they get away with getting rid of the year wait.
Yeah, which is the Two Rivers tradition, right?
Right. You wait a year of engagement before you get married. But since they were traveling together so much, that is a little different. When you're traveling with somebody, you're living with them day in and day out.
Sure.
Relying on each other.
If anything can test the mettle of a relationship, it's never being away from each other for all that time.
Right.
If you don't self-destruct before then, you're probably good.
And Aradio's asking, when does he fall for her? I think he's already falling for her. He just doesn't want to admit it to himself. And that's Perrin's big struggle, is admitting his feelings. He's so tied up in himself because he is so afraid of hurting people that he is unable to examine his own feelings. And that's what keeps him out of the Dream Terrangrial, and that's what keeps him from admitting that he's in love with Zareen.
I like that.
He's already looking at her being like, I can't decide if she's pretty or not.
And for the Chosen's headcanon, he does spend a lot of time thinking about her pretty eyes, doesn't she? Or doesn't he?
Uh-huh. And she's
well-fitted riding dresses.
Yeah.
With the slit up the back, right?
I mean, the two of them are constantly watching each other. When you read these, Zareen's eyes followed Perrin as he walked by her to stand in the bow. They're giving each other moon eyes this entire time. It's even Moraine called him out on it, just like sometimes a girl likes a guy with big shoulders.
Yeah.
Like...
No, she's not a dark friend. She's just looking at you, man.
Yeah.
It's not, there's nothing weird happening here.
It's called flirting. Yeah. And he can't stop thinking about her. She's just in his head constantly, and he's just thinking about her, and thinking about her, and thinking about her. Yeah, I don't know if he's got a crush at all. Don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, right? Does he spend more time thinking about anything else?
Maybe the wolves.
Maybe.
It's
a close competitor, but... It's like, oh, I have superpowers? That's something to consider, but also this pretty girl.
Yeah.
Yes, Travmodium, that's a good way to say it. I can talk to wolves. Cool, but have you seen this girl?
Have you met Fail? Perspective switch to Rand.
Rand sat up, out of his exhausted sleep, gasping, the cloak he had used as a blanket falling away. His side ached, the old wound from Falm throbbing. His fire had burned down to coals with only a few wavering flames, but it was still enough to make the shadows move. That was Perrin. It was, he's thinking. It was him, not a dream. Somehow. I almost killed him. Light. I have to be more careful.
My question is, do you think he pulled the punch at the last minute, and that's why Perrin survived?
Maybe.
Or do you think it was that Perrin got out of there?
Yeah, because that's what I thought, because it could easily be either. Or both. But it feels more like Perrin pulled himself out of the dream than...
Or the wolf knocked him out.
Yeah.
Because I thought he pulled his punch with Egwene when he almost killed her. That he, stopped himself at the last minute.
It could be. But since they're both dreamers, it's hard to say. Or all three, really, I should say, are dreamers. It's hard to say what's happening.
But yeah, I can see Rand, dumping most of the power from the lightning away from it, preventing it from actually hurting Perrin as much. Maybe
Just
after he's already formed the weave, but yeah. He got a little bit of current to his chest, just enough to...
That makes sense, because the mark does look like he got hit by lightning, but it's too small to, have been anything more than just a little painful.
Sure. Don't tase me, bro.
There were horses coming, 10 or a dozen of them, walking slowly. I have to be careful. I cannot make another mistake. The horses swung toward his failing fire, entered the dim light, and stopped.
And, okay, so this is kind of an iconic scene for a couple of reasons.
Yes.
One, it's one of the places where people really think Rand may be experiencing real madness, because it appears that he kills an innocent woman. I'm saying appears.
Yes.
And two, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that his side ached, because we earlier talked about how the pain in his side seems to react to either him channeling or to the presence of shadow spawn.
Right.
And I think here, the fact that his side is throbbing has a lot to do with the fact that there's a gray man in the group.
Mm-hmm.
And that throbbing is what alerts him to the danger, even if it's subconscious.
I think so. I think that the intent of this party is not pure. Even the woman. I think that she's aware of what she's doing. Right. She's not just a foil being used by the shadow. She is...
I think she's a channeler.
Really?
I do. She's the most dangerous. Why else would she be the most dangerous unless she was a female, either like a Dreadlord or a young Aes Sedai?
Yeah.
Or an Aes Sedai who never took the oaths?
She's surrounded by private soldiers, it looks like. Rough-faced men wearing round helmets and long leather jerkins sewn all over with metal discs like fish scales. One was a woman with graying hair and a no-nonsense look on her face. Her dark dress was plain wool, but the finest weave, and adorned with a silver pin in the shape of a lion. A merchant, she seemed to him. He had seen her sort among those who had come to buy tabac and wool in the Two Rivers, a merchant and her guards.
Any idea what the lion pin symbolizes? Do we think it's an Andorran?
That she's just Andorran?
She's just Andorran.
Maybe? I didn't see it as having a lot of significance, but...
Oh, okay, so here's my significance theory. We know he's crossed the river.
Uh-huh.
He's on the other side. He's on the Kyrianan side.
Yeah?
And because he's heading to Tyr.
Right.
And, he has a choice. He's either gone downriver or he's crossed the river. And we know he's crossed. So he encounters an Andorran traveling in the middle of Kyrian, in the middle of a war-torn Civil War area.
Which implies that she's following him. This isn't a random occurrence.
No, this is not a random encounter. She is out of her element. She's out of her space.
A wild dark friend has appeared.
Yes, I do believe Ishmael sent this caravan. I think she's one of his pets, toys. I'm not 100% certain she's a channeler, but it fits my headcanon. I think that's why he kills her first.
I'm nodding.
Even if she's a dark friend, the potential for her to be a channeler is there.
I have to be careful, he thought as he stood. No mistakes. You have chosen a good campsite, young man, she said. I have often used it on my way to Remen. There is a small spring nearby. I trust you have no objection to my sharing it. Her guards were already dismounting, hitching at their sword belts, and loosening saddle girths. None, Rand told her. Careful. 2 steps brought him close enough, and he leapt into the air, spinning. Thistledown floats on the whirlwind. Heron-mark blade, carved from fire, coming into his hands to take her head off, before surprise could even form on her face. She was the most dangerous, is his thought. He alighted, as the woman's head rolled from the crupper of her horse. The guards yelled, and clawed for their swords, screamed as they realized his blade burned. He danced among them, in the forms Lan had taught him, and he knew he could have killed all 10 with ordinary steel. But the blade he wielded was part of him. The last man fell, and it had been so like practicing the forms that he had already begun the sheathing, called the folding the fan, before he remembered he wore no scabbard, and his blade would have turned it to ash at a touch if he had.
So he's really been practicing with Lan over the winter. He spent 3-4 months getting better at the sword since his fight with Lord Turok, where he was, a blade master.
Technically
in the
becomes
void.
a blade master.
So he's definitely leveled up in terms of his abilities. It also helps when your sword of fire can cut through other people's swords.
Right. and armor and whatnot.
Yeah. And you can summon it and dismiss it easily and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And he does have the thought, and I believe him, that he felt he could have done it with a steel sword, rather than just a fire one. Killed all of them.
Yeah, there's some debate over whether or not this woman was a channeler.
Right, it could be his paranoia because he just has the thought she was the most dangerous.
Right,
and there's nothing to say yay or nay. Like there's no evidence that she's a channeler, other than Rand's thought. I mean, she could be, and she might not be. She could have been I don't think this is true, but going against what I was saying before, I think it's totally possible even that she doesn't know what's going on. Maybe she's just accidentally harboring dark friends. That's also possible, and Rand just kills all of them.
And I think that's definitely possible, and I think that's where we get into a real moral gray area with Rand, where maybe he sensed that there was a gray man in the group, and that set off his paranoia, and he killed 10 innocent people.
Right.
Just to get at the one gray man. And maybe he had to do it or else he would have been killed. But seeing that lion pin really makes me question that. Because the lion pin is out of place, which makes me think she's out of place. Now, she's a merchant, so maybe she's traveling. But why is she traveling through Cairhien? It's in the middle of a civil war. There's nothing to trade there.
Yeah. She implies that she's headed in the opposite direction. Like she's headed toward Remen, and so maybe their paths are crossing in opposite directions, But that could easily be a lie. There's just no way to know.
And he is, it's a good point, he's pretty sleep deprived.
Yeah.
He's not been sleeping well, and when he does, he's in
That's a good point, Leia. He's been trying not to sleep, so he may be also acting unstable because he's losing his mind for a different reason.
There's a quote somewhere from Robert Jordan confirming that the woman was a dark friend and not an innocent. And I think the pin points that out pretty obviously.
Yeah. As obvious as RJ ever gets, other than outright stating a thing.
Right. I mean, let's outright for Robert Jordan, which is as bad as subtle as an Aiel's expression.
Yeah. The power still filled him. The flow from Sidene sweeter than honey, ranker than rotted meat. Abruptly he channeled, not really understanding what it was he did, or how, only that it seemed right, and it worked. Lifting the corpses, he set them in a line, facing him, kneeling, faces in the dirt, for those who had faces left, kneeling to him. If I am the Dragon Reborn, he told him, that is the way it is supposed to be, isn't it? Letting go of Sidene was hard, but he did it. If I hold it too much, how will I keep the madness away? He laughed bitterly. Or is it too late for that? Frowning, he peered at the line. He had been sure there were only 10 men, but 11 men knelt in that line, one of them without armor of any sort, but with a dagger still gripped in his hand. You chose the wrong company, Rand told that man. Wheeling the gelding, he dug in his heels and set the animal to a dead gallop into the night. It was a long way to Tyr yet, but he meant to get there by the straightest way. If he had to kill horses or steal them, I will put an end to it. The taunting, the baiting, I will end it. Kalendor had called to him.
So we know he's going overland on horses in a straight line.
Yeah.
We see the 11th man is a gray man with a knife and no armor.
Right. When Rand says, you chose the wrong company, he's absolutely wrong. They chose the wrong company.
Exactly. The company chose the wrong man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thought. So all a bunch of dark friends. I do believe that he is suffering from the first bit of insanity.
Probably.
I think that his insanity progresses along for a while before it manifests a voice.
And there seems to be a lot of the bleed-through effect happening already.
Absolutely.
Where he does this like incredibly complex weave where he simultaneously picks up 11 people and sets them into, these positions that's a really complicated thing. Most channelers could never do that. Even trained channelers wouldn't be able to weave that many flows at once. That's at least 11 simultaneous things he's doing.
In the beginning, the taint is starting to seep into Rand's mind, and he is going a little insane. And rather than going crazy, he manages to sequester the crazy part of himself, and it manifests the voice of LTT.
I like that.
And it's certainly exasperated by a lack of sleep and stress and pressure, but that's going on through the entire series. I really do think that he's got some insanity going on. He's been channeling for a while now.
I've always been a proponent that it's a slow creep.
Exactly. And then the slow creep starts right after the Eye of the World.
I think so, yeah. Leia thinks we're wrong.
Everyone's pointing to all the other factors that are going on. The madness is,
The incredible stress, which is something we've talked about before.
Forsaken fuck with his head and stress. And I don't disagree with any of that. Those are all affecting him. But he's also been channeling for a while now.
True.
And I don't think you can say the taint isn't affecting him.
And I agree with you, Travis. After Tyr, in the waste, he appears to be a lot more stable than he does before the waste. I think that's probably for multiple reasons. But the taint is something that will start slowly, So and I have always thought was purposefully done by RJ, that you really don't know when it starts. Like, what's the taint madness? What's stress? What's sleep deprivation?
What's
and
PTSD?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? I just assume that as soon as he starts channeling, it's already beginning to happen. And it slowly builds until Darth Rand, totally out of his face crazy.
Totally. And I don't think the voice of Louis Theron comes out of anywhere either. That starts very subtly and builds gradually.
Nodding to that.
And even right here, the power still filled him. The flow from Sidene, sweeter than honey, ranker than rotted meat. Clearly, the rancor stuff is this taint pouring into him. And, okay, here's my other argument. Sorry, I'm going to talk about this a little bit longer. Jordan definitely didn't think this series was going to be as long as it is. He thought he was going to end it a lot earlier. So I do believe that in this book, he's manifesting a lot more madness deliberately in Rand, because he's trying to do that ramp up a lot faster. And then when he realizes, I think in book 4, he's like, I need to tone it back a little bit. So I think that's the non-plot explanation. Actually, that would be interesting to me in a Radia Travis episode.
That'd be fun.
Get the two of them going. Let me off the hook.
We should do an episode like that again sometime.
We should. You guys want to figure out an upcoming chapter? And it's definitely a lot more work. So that's the only reason, I would love to have a guest on here every single time, but it's always a lot more coordination work. It's always a ton more editing, and it just makes me slower in the process of putting them out.
Sure.
We've also talked about having the two of them write articles for the blog, or for a blog.
Yeah?
So if you, yeah.
Are we talking about Travis on radio?
Yeah. Because they've been working on the theories section pretty heavily. And I'd like to see some of that written up in long form.
We could do something and put it on the website, or something like that.
So you go to WattSpoilers/blog. There's a whole template set up. It doesn't have any content yet, but we'll be able to just post a blog there.
I haven't looked at the website in so long.
I know. Because why do you look at the website for the podcast? You don't. That's why I'm thinking, maybe the blog will drive people there, and then they'll go to the main page. So I'd love to, that would be a cool way to drive traffic, would be to like, hey, we can post this blog post on various, social media sites, and, maybe we can get it linked to on Tor or something like that.
Totally.
And then that'll drive traffic to the website, and then people will be on the website and be able to find the podcast.
I've always wanted something to be there, but like Seth and I have our work cut out for us, and frankly, like that's the first good idea of what to put there that I've heard.
I mean, it's something that's coming up relatively organically. I mean, I know there's a lot of work going into it, obviously, but it's what's, the theories and plot lines in the headcanon library are things that have come up through the arguments of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd love to just see those formally written up and then posted. And it's like the hail of arrows. I feel like book 1 and 2 was like one arrow, like pulled back and fired, and like hit dead center. Don't get me wrong, impressive shots, both of them. But this one is a freaking hail of storylines coming, and they all hit the bullseye, and it's just wonderful. It's so exciting to see these storylines really get started, and without Rand in this book, everyone gets their time in the sun. And so we get to see Perrin, we get to see Egwene, both develop significantly in these storylines.
Rand's got like a total of 20 pages in this whole book.
I'm actually surprised how often he pops up. But it's only like a page or two at the end of each chapter.
Right. Like just a quick perspective switch. Last page is Rand
or someone else seeing him in the world of dreams,
crying and murdering, and then that's it.
He's not insane. He's totally sane. Totally sane.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?